Thank you for watching Animal. Welcome to Animal Football Insider, your weekly look into the happenings of your Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Florida Gators, and all things related to football. And now, from West Des Moines, Iowa, here's your host, The Animal.
Whoa, Nelly! It has been quite an interesting week for football in general, be it the Florida Gators, be it the boys behind me with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We had it all in the state of football, in the state of Florida when it comes to football, or the state of football for that matter. And it certainly has been a very interesting weekend, make no mistake about it. And the week continues even as we get ready for a big game coming up this Saturday, both in college and professional. It's going to be a great week. Hope you join us during the next hour. We're going to have a good time tonight. And maybe we'll even Wing Chun tonight as well. We'll see what happens here. Thank you for joining me on this special edition. Well, not special edition. It's the regular weekday edition of the Animal Football Insider, coming at you from the confines of West Des Moines, Iowa, on a night in which, well, Gator fans are still sulking after the big loss on Saturday night. The Buccaneers are cheering a win, but how far that cheering is going to go remains to be seen as we get into this football season. And, of course, other sports are happening around the Tampa Bay area. We're going to keep you posted on what's going on with the American League wildcard or a divisional game between the Red Sox and the Rays at Tropicana Field. It is a sold-out stadium. We know it's football, but there's no reason why we can't talk about other things here on the Animal Football Insider. We welcome your comments in the chat room. Please if you have any questions, feel free, and we'll be able to answer those questions as the night goes along. Now, we must say right up front, Shane Matthews, unable to join us tonight. He had a last-minute commitment, family thing. We understand that, Shane. Well, hopefully down the road, we'll be able to see you as the year progresses, because I know there will be plenty of conversation about the Florida Gators. And speaking of which, that's where we're going to begin our conversation tonight. The boys in orange and blue made their big first true road game of the year when they traveled to Lexington, Kentucky to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. It wasn't the performance that everybody thought there was going to be. Remember, they come off a heartbreaking loss at the hands of Alabama, but played them toe-to-toe, only to lose by 2. They come back home, they win their next game, and then they travel to Lexington, Kentucky. Everybody thought maybe that this will be a great game, that in the end the Florida Gators will be able to pull it out. But unfortunately, that was not to be the case. Thanks to loud crowd noise in Kentucky, which contributed to 15 penalties for 115 yards. 7 of them were false starts penalties done by the offensive line, and a offense that was just not in sync. The Florida Gators fell out the hands. 20-13 was the final score in the game. As we go to the final statistics for that ball game, if I can pull them up here, I'm just playing by the numbers. What can you say, But in the game for Emory Jones, he didn't have that bad of a game. 23-31 for 203 yards on the game, but he had a very key interception during the course of the game. Will Levis, the quarterback for the Kentucky Wildcats, he had an interception. He threw for 87 yards on the day. Let's make no mistake about it. This Gator defense came to play, and they played a very good game. But it was the penalties and poor special teams play, as the Gators had a blocked kick that got returned for a touchdown, which probably proved to be the difference during the course of the game. But it just wasn't the penalties that happened. There were false, as we said, there were false starts, but there was a series towards the end of the half when Dan Mullins and the offense really had a chance to go down and score, but due due to the ineptness of this offense, Mullen decided to say, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to go into the locker room and come out in the second half and try and pick up the pace a little bit. It wasn't to happen. It just resulted in poor play by this offense, and in the end, the Gators fall. Now they are, I believe, 3-2 on the year. They played home this weekend against Vanderbilt, homecoming with Gator ground and all, and then they travel next week to LSU. In LSU, that's going to be a big game for the Fighting Florida Gators. Make no mistake about it. One gentleman that's always big in some form or fashion. A gentleman that's always ready to play the big games. A gentleman that knows all about what big games is about. He's a fine individual, a well human being, and probably the only Englishman Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan that has a love lifespan of more than 2 minutes. So, but don't worry about that because I have a love lifespan of 30 seconds or less. But I'm married, so what can I say? He is James Brit Buc Wilson. As we get ready to bring him on board, if I can. There he is with the nice hat tonight. Nice job. How are you, buddy?
Well, you asked for a dapper hat, so I thought, you know what, you're a dapper fellow, and I thought I would nicely oblige for you there. But yeah, first of all, like, my apologies for my late arrival.
No.
I feel like we should all have a moment to just marvel at the wonder is Apple forcing updates when you're trying to do something.
There you go. There you go. Hey, your timing. Hey, look, your timing is always great. I appreciate it. And don't worry, we're going to get into the Buccaneers in just a couple.
You know what? I get in here, and obviously you're talking about the Kentucky loss, and
woo! I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. I don't know. I don't know if you saw that game, but that had to become one of the more, I don't want to say ineptness games or confounding games, but James, if you saw that game,
yeah,
this was a very confusing ball game.
Like, for me, the problem with the game, and I only managed to catch a little bit of it live, so I went back after recording it, watched the recording. I'm actually at a loss because the plays that were called appeared. I mean, let's be honest here. Like a lot of the plays broke down, and it just, as you sort of said there, Animal. Was it ineptness? Was it like poor execution? It was all of the above. I don't think the coaches actually, and I'm going to probably get a lot of stick for this, but I don't actually think the coaches did a terrible job at all. I think that they called the game right for the situations that they were in, both offensively and defensively. I don't even think that, the Gators were out coached by Kentucky.
Chips. Yeah.
I don't think that they were out coached. I hate saying this because, I've been an athlete. I've been a professional athlete myself, and I know that sometimes, like, obviously looking at me now, I'm going back a few years now, but I know obviously the pressure is there, and like the players have to be put into position to succeed, etc., etc. But for me, this loss comes down to the players. No one individually had like a moment where you can sort of point your finger and be, that was the moment the game changed. For me, everybody just seemed to have some struggle going on at some points in the game. And it wasn't even like players were consistently bad. You go back and you look at the offensive line play, for example. There were several times that the blocking assignments just fell to pieces.
Nobody knew.
Nobody knew who they were supposed to be blocking. And this wasn't because Kentucky were doing something like extravagant. There was no phantasmagoria. By the way, I love that word. There was no like display or rapid motion or something that had never been seen before. But for some reason, communication broke down, people didn't know who they were blocking. But then, you could have an awful blown play, but then you could have an offensive line that looked like a steel wall. And it's when you lose games like that, it's inexplicable. And it's so frustrating because you want to say, it was this player's fault. Like, last season when we were talking about what's his face Wilson, who threw the guy's shoe. Now,
Marco Wilson,
yes,
Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah,
the LSU game, yeah.
Yeah, and like you can look at that moment and be like, that is the moment why we lost the game. Without that moment, we win. Can anybody watching this actually point out, anyone who watched the game live, actually point out a moment that says, I think this is where we lost the game? For me, I can't pick out any one moment because, let me just bring it up here. Like, the final score was 20-13. At any point, the Gators could have come back and won this game. Oh, sure. So it's not like the game was ever out of reach. Yeah. But for some reason, watching it, that 7-point differential, it felt like an eternity. It just felt like an insurmountable obstacle.
Yeah, you're right about that. And 7-8 times there were like false starts during the course of the game, which said every time the Gators were trying to move 3 steps forward, they would be taking 2 steps back due to poor play by this offensive line, not reacting to the hostile crowd in Lexington. Because I'll tell you what, people, it was a very, very loud crowd, and whether they did not expect it, whether or not, and part of it, I'll blame on the coaching staff for not adhering to the loud noise and coming up with a plan for the cadence count. Okay, I'm going to say that. Okay,
I'll give you that. Okay, if communication was an issue, then the coaching staff should have stepped in, between the players because of the atmosphere. That's when maybe you're right. You're turning to your silent snap counts. You're making sure that your cadence is tight. But to me, players aren't autonomous, and I get it is the coach's responsibility to get in there and say, guys, try this. But players as well should be saying to the coaches, hey, this isn't working. We need to change it. But I'm sorry, I was interrupting you.
No, I am too, because and by the way, we're going to keep you updated on the Rays game that's going on tonight. They're playing in the American League Divisional Series. Hey, look, we know we're talking about football, but hey, there's other sports that's going on. Why not talk a little bit about baseball as well?
Absolutely.
But here's my thing about the whole thing. The offensive line, they had a very poor game. There's no question about it. Special teams was horrible. I believe there was a missed extra point. There was a blocked punt in the game that got returned for a touchdown. I mean, all in all, this was a poorly played game, and you had to go back and wonder, was either poor execution or did these guys start reading the press clippings and assuming, hey, look, this is Kentucky.
Yeah. I think one of the problems, and I think you've nailed it on the head, that I think that they went to Kentucky and they just expected to win. I mean, let's remember, the Gators are now 3-2. They went into the game 3-1. Their only loss coming against the Crimson Tide,
a very good Alabama team.
And you know what? A team that they played right to the end. Bama have blown out teams better than this Gators team. And then we've seen that happen. You know what? They went into Alabama and they did really they played against Alabama and they played really well. They went into Kentucky and they thought that they didn't have to play. I think maybe it's a case of overconfidence. They got smacked in the mouth very early on. Pardon me. Obviously, they go out, they score the touchdown. It's answered right away. Then they go ahead again through the field. And then
All of a sudden
It
they
just
just collapsed.
it
I
just
know.
felt like even those 10 points, it felt like a struggle.
It did. It really did. And I'm with you on that because it felt like, and first of all, the Florida coming into the game was they had won 33 of the last 35 matchups, as well as 39 of the last 42. Um, but for some reason, Kentucky has Dan Mullen's number because it's the second time that he has lost to Kentucky while at Florida, and it just why Mark Stoops has Dan Mullen's number. I have no idea. You're right. I don't think Dan Mullen was out coached, but by the same token, this coaching staff should have done a lot of things better, especially with the last drive there in the second half. And there are a lot of questions now about whether or not Dan Mullen has a lot of trust in Emory Jones. I don't.
That's a
I,
whole different question. That
and as we ponder into that, I like Emory Jones. I like what he's doing. Granted, I still love Anthony Richardson, and what he's doing. But Emory Jones, especially in the Alabama game and the following game, and I forget what game they had against, but I still, I have a lot of respect for Emory Jones and what he's doing, and Emory quite frankly has earned my respect.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember the last time I was here with you, obviously, like with the Florida Gators expert there that we had on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we were talking and saying and one of the questions I asked, because we were right at the beginning of the season, I remember, is if he saw one or the other between Jones or Richardson separating themselves. At the time, obviously, I think the general consensus was, we're going to roll both quarterbacks. Everyone accepted that. And then it looked like Jones was starting to make that sort of push to be the first choice. And then, as you say, it does seem like Dan Mullen just isn't trusting Jones in certain situations. But what baffles me, and I'm still standing by, as I say, I don't think Dan Mullen was outcoached. I think it was an issue with the players on the field. But the thing that, if you're starting to lose confidence in one quarterback's ability to do something, you have a perfectly good option sat right next to you.
Yeah.
And if you don't trust Jones to get 6 yards, you know what? Bring Richardson in. Play RPO. How many times have we seen that RPO where Richardson's got a first down? Because he can either run it or pass it. He can look to see. That's where he excels.
Right.
In that misdirection, dual threat game.
That's right.
But again, I mean, I'm just going to go into the stats legend here because as I was watching the game, I was sort of asking myself, what on earth was going on? Richardson just made one single passing attempt in that game.
One pass for 8 yards. Yeah, I mean, he just came in for one play, and it's like, really? I mean, that's. I mean, I don't understand the reason why.
And then 5 rushes for 25 yards. That's 5 yards of rush.
Right, and it's like 5. Yeah, right. It's like, what are you doing? And it's
I mean, the question that I kind of want to ask is, has something happened behind the scenes that we don't know about? And you know what? Is Richardson being sort of taught a lesson, so to speak? Is he receiving sort of any disciplinary action at this time that's limiting his game? Or has Dan Mullen lost his trust in him as well? Is Dan Mullen starting to outthink himself?
That's a great point. Is he overthinking? I mean, that's a very legitimate point. I mean,
here's a question.
I know what you're saying though.
Here's a question for you, Animal. If you had, and we're just in some fantasy reality, and you are the head coach of an NFL team that has both Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Which one of them do you play?
Oh, Peyton, of course.
So you go with Peyton Manning. Okay.
Right.
So you've got Tom Brady sitting around doing nothing. Okay. They're both very, very similar quarterbacks. And I totally get that.
Why not
Yeah.
use them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
They are very, very similar quarterbacks. So, I absolutely understand and respect that you would choose one over the other, because at the end of the day, only one can start. One has to sit down. So you know what? You can have Peyton Manning as your passing quarterback. He's yours. Now, I'm going to come in with a trade. Now, I've got a pristine Michael Vick. We're talking his 2003 season here, like when he was a cheat code. Now, I don't want a running quarterback. I want a passing one. So we're going to swap our quarterbacks. You've now got Peyton Manning and Michael Vick. Now, which one of them do you play?
That's right. That's right. I play Vic.
Exactly. Vic will give you options. But you know what? If you're playing against someone who, the defense is set up and you're like, you know what, they're keying in on a rushing quarterback, let's bring in the guy who can throw the ball over their heads. So out comes Peyton Manning. And you know what? If you're playing against a team that's like, you know what, let's drop back, let's respect the pass, you play Michael Vick to run all over them. So, you know what? Dan Mullen's got two very talented but very different quarterbacks. And the fact that he cannot choose between them was seemingly doing one thing. I think he's trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Great. That's a great, that is really a great observation. I never thought of it like that, but that's something to think about.
He has a two-headed monster.
He does. You're exactly right. Why not go ahead and use it unless? And I think for Dan Mullen, I think what he wants to do is, I think he's trying to save Richardson down the road. I'm not sure. I don't know why he doesn't play them, but I don't get it. I really don't get it why he doesn't play Richardson more.
It could be an overexposure thing, absolutely.
And look, we're not trying to demonize Emory Jones, but look, if something's not
not at all. I'll happily say this like as many times as anyone wants to hear it on the record. Emory Jones is a talented NCAA quarterback. He's not one-dimensional at all. He is the more talented passer, I think, between him and Anthony Richardson. But as I've said before, if you are having problems executing with one type of quarterback, you have another type of quarterback to try something different. And this is the problem, this is my only criticism of Dan Mullen during that, because as I say, I still say it's down to the players not expecting to have to play. But the one mistake for Dan Mullen is he did not try something different. He didn't have plan B. Plan A should have worked if everybody executed, but when he should have seen that it wasn't working and then should have been able to go to plan B. That's my criticism.
What did he say? Let me find it here. He made a comment after the game. Try to put a positive spin on, saying something to the effect, hey, look, when you have more yards from 382 to 224, I don't know what you can do. And he was really criticized for that. But I mean, I understand Mullen's trying to find a bright side of things, but
Yeah, and you've got to again look at the players. I know people say that false start penalties come from the coaching down, but at some point the players have got to be responsible. I mean, I was it 8, 9, 7? It was a ridiculously high number of false start penalties.
8 penalties, 8 false starts penalties during the course of the game, and
and there was like over 100 yards of penalties again.
15,
it's like, you know what? Yeah. This is what I can say to Coach Dan Mullins is if he doesn't know what else he needs to do, and why one team can have so many yards and still lose to a team that doesn't have as many yards is don't commit so many penalties.
Exactly. But yeah.
Because if you're committing a 5-yard penalty, then actually every single first down you're going for that you commit a penalty on, it's not 10. You have to go 15 yards to get that first down.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Well, kind of like
It just became 50% harder.
exactly, and I don't know why these guys were not playing up to the potential, but one team that's playing up to the potential, even though they kind of with a lackluster performance, but hey, when you have a doink, you're going to take that any day of the week, and that's where we turn our attention. Buccaneers, Patriots, Sunday Night Football. Hang on, take a little sip. I'll be right back with you here. It was Sunday Night Football, ladies and gentlemen, as the Buccaneers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were taking on the New England Patriots. Sunday Night Football, the return of Tom Brady, and you know that this was going to be an exciting game. Now, going into the game, there was a lot of fanfare. Tom Brady walking out on the field, a lot of media hype and everything. And the game really kind of lived up to the billing, but in a lot of ways did not fill up to the billing. 19-17, I believe, was the final. Yeah, 19-17 was the final score, due in part to a doinky field goal at the end of the game by the Patriots. But in the process, the Buccaneers end up winning the game, and Tom Brady gained the better half of his team. But in a lot of ways, that New England Patriots exposed this Buccaneer offense on Sunday night.
On the show I do with James Luderman, you guys have met him. He's been here before.
Yeah,
we were talking like
we're waiting on him.
Yeah, and like one of the things like that we talked about on that show was the fact that Mac Jones looked like a phenom. Now, I've gone back and I've looked at the game, and one thing is absolutely for certain. One, we've all known this about this Buccaneers defense. If the pass rush isn't disrupting the pass, the other team are going to get yards through the air. It's always going to look a lot worse than it does, simply because the Buccaneers defense turns teams one-dimensional. We've talked about this before with that pass rush, getting after the quarterback. That's where this defense is sort of on the knife's edge. If they get there, great. If they don't, they're going to give up yards. There's no point trying to rush on this defense. It just doesn't happen. We've seen that time and time again.
No, it doesn't.
This defense is too good at stopping the run and stuffing it in the backfield.
And for the Buccaneers, they held the Patriots to -1 yard rushing the entire night. I mean, and for a defense that was hurting in the backfield with a lot of cornerbacks, a lot of defensive backs not being able to play in the game. Oh, by the way, one other interesting news that came down today, DB Carlton Davis was put on injury reserve, so he'll be out for 3 games, further depleting this defensive backfield as they get ready to come back home to take on the Miami Dolphins. And credit Todd Bowles and the great defense performance, I should say, that they put on. This defense definitely came to play.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was talking about Brady versus Belichick, Brady versus like Mac Jones, the new coming, etc., etc. Not many people expected this to be a game that was dominated by defenses, and it was. Yes, Mac Jones put up incredibly good numbers. He looks like he's legitimately going to be a good quarterback. And you know what? All power to him. It looks like they're building a really good defense over in New England. Speaking of defenses, like, we're losing ours.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, are still thinking, and I'm glad you mentioned, obviously, he's going to be out for the minimum 3 games.
3 games.
Because I think a lot of people have forgotten or still think about the old injury reserve list, whereby
once they get put on IR, they're usually out up to
yeah,
6
if you were put
weeks.
on IR, you were done for the year.
Well, yeah, it used to be that way. Then they changed it to 6 weeks. Now it's
come
minimum.
down.
Now it's come down to minimum 3 weeks, which I like. I think. Yeah,
The guy's
like
not occupying a roster spot, and that's the main thing. They know he's not going to play for 3 weeks, and this is something I don't like. Obviously, you've seen, like you guys watching might have seen, like at Bucs Life Media, we kind of broke the news that he had been diagnosed with a quad injury, and that his expected sort of timescale was 2 to 4 weeks.
Right.
So 3 weeks is right in the middle of 2 to 4 weeks. And we kind of knew that he wasn't going to be available. This is now confirmed that he isn't going to be available. And, you know what? It's fine. He was going to be injured anyway. Now, him being on injured reserve just means that he isn't occupying a roster spot.
No.
Means they can bring up someone from the practice squad. They can bring in somebody from free agency.
As what they did last week, bring in Richard Sherman, who played a big part in the game last week. Make no mistake about it.
Absolutely. And you know what? People say, like, oh, Richard Sherman gave up all these yards. He's obviously a bust. The Richard Sherman experiment failed.
No, I don't.
The guy had 3 days. You know what? Go back and actually count the physical days of practice that he had with the team and with the playbook. It was 3 practices he had with the team.
One, and in the end, it's, as I look at the final numbers in the game for the Patriots offense, Matt Jones was 31 of 40 for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had that interception during the course of the game.
And Richard Sherman recovered a fumble.
That's right, and that's right. He but Sherman even recovered a fumble. So, you know, I'm not too disappointed in the way this defense played. I'm more disappointed in the fact that this offense could not get it going. Now, let's caution our people that are watching tonight that, you know, it was raining. It was coming down hard during some points during the course of the game, and it just resulted in a performance. It just resulted in a lackluster offensive performance. Now they turn their attention to the Miami Dolphins this week, and I know you got to go here in just a few minutes, but you know, as we get ready for the Miami Dolphins this week, give us 2 or 3 aspects that we should be watching for this week, because this is going to be very interesting.
For me, it's going to be the biggest thing is Miami is hurting on offense in everywhere on offense. Obviously, Tua's not available. The starting O-line is beaten up. Running backs beaten up. Wide receivers beaten up. Tight ends not seeming to contribute. The biggest test for me is going to be, are the Buccaneers, like, on defense, are they actually a legitimate deal? They should dominate this game. Miami shouldn't really score more than 10 points, I don't think, in this game. Yeah. Now, Miami's defense is actually fairly competent.
They are. They're a fairly good defense.
It's the offense which is really, really letting this team down. And however, do I think the Buccaneer offense is better than the Miami defense? Absolutely. But you know what? I don't think everyone's going to have it their own way. I think there's still going to be a lot of, like, after effects from that late night game in New England. And people who I know were there has said what you were seeing on television regarding that rain it didn't do it justice. It was as horrible, damp, and you may have seen what Chris Godwin said about it. being as wet as something. And he's not wrong, and that definitely affected the performance. They're not going to hopefully have to deal with those kind of conditions again, but I still think that this offense is trying to get into a rhythm. No Scotty Miller, we know that he might actually be done for the year, but Godwin, Evans, Brown, Darden, Johnson, these are all looking like people coming back. Like Gronk's lungs are apparently now healing, so hopefully it's not too long before he's back.
Yeah, they expect a couple more weeks on him, and funny that you should mention that, because I was just having to ponder the schedule down the road. They play against Miami at home, then they travel to Philadelphia for a Thursday night game, and then they come back home against the Bears with Justin Fields on the 24th. So, I mean, that's going to be it. That's going to be, having to play this Sunday, then go to Philadelphia on Thursday. Wow, that's going to be something very interesting to see. I know you got to go. I wish you'd stay on long, but I know. But you know what? You remind me. Looking at that hat reminds me of Tom Petty. And funny you mentioned about Tom Petty, because if you know that in the fourth quarter Gator games they do the Tom Petty song "I Won't Back Down." So
absolutely, just as long as I'm not a heartbreaker.
No, you're not a heart. Well, you're breaking my heart because you're leaving. So I got 30 minutes to fill in, and hopefully somebody will be nice enough to want to log on here and talk some football. So, Luderman. So hopefully he's watching it and want to log on. Listen, thank you so much for joining me. I know you got to go.
Always a pleasure.
Now let me tell you what's going on. Next Thursday, there's not going to be a show next week, as I'm going to be on vacation. And then with the following week being on a Thursday night, we're going to push Insider to maybe Tuesday night, which is 2 days before the Philadelphia game. So if you want to put that on your record and say, look, 7:30, 8:30, I'm crossing that out just for that's my time with the animal. So you can join us for a longer period of time.
Just keep sending me the invite. Obviously, if my schedule matches up with work and everything, because unfortunately I work late nights now, but if my schedule matches up, would absolutely love to do it, because as I say, always a pleasure coming and talking football with you.
Always a pleasure, and some night when you're doing a Wednesday night, maybe I'll just hop on your show too. You never know what to expect. So there
sounds great, guys. Stay safe.
James. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. James Brit Buc Wilson joining me on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. As we talked a little bit about the Florida Gators, and we talked a little bit about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Real quick, the Rays and the Sox, they're playing at home. They've done 2 innings already, 2-0. Rays have the lead. We'll keep you posted as that game goes on. By the way, there is also Thursday night action in the National Football League, and Seattle and the Rams are doing battle, and we'll keep you posted on that game as well. Well, I want to go back to the Florida Gators for just a minute, and you guys can comment, talk about what you want, but the game on Saturday night was kind of a very puzzling game to me. I thought that this Gator offense should have played better, should have come out high powered, should have just ripped into this Kentucky defense. Now, whether you want to blame the players or the coaching staff, I think the combination of both. I think that what we saw during that game was teams that just really did not had the concentration to want to play. I mean, 7 to 8 false starts during the course of the game. That's unacceptable, especially in a loud crowd. Now, you can also go back and you can point to this coaching staff is not doing its job and getting the crowd, getting the snap counts the way it should have been. And you can talk about that. But, for the most part, I think that for the Florida Gators, they showed that there is some weakness. And so in a lot of ways, this might have been a good game for the Gators to learn from. to understand that attention to detail takes its highest priority. Make no mistake about that. Even with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the things about Tom Brady that I like a lot, he's very attentive to detail. Okay. And from my understanding, when you watch him and the way he plays, okay, he will come up to the line and want to make sure that his offensive line is set properly, the receivers are set properly. You don't see that with the Florida Gators team. And I know college and pros are different, and we're talking apples to oranges between Emory Jones and Tom Brady. But by same token, you should at least know and get set for be prepared for what's coming ahead. And we didn't see that in the game Saturday night. Um, Twitter's been a buzz all week. Some are calling for Dan Mullen's head, um, and it's just crazy right now. Um, let's see here. I'm gonna see what I can do here. Just a minute. See if my buddy wants to come on. Let's see here. Just a minute. Uh, see if my good friend Lucas Band like to join me, talk a little bit Gator football some more. As they get ready to take on Vanderbilt this weekend in Florida Field. It is Gator Growl. It is homecoming weekend. They're gonna honor several former Gators during Gator Growl night, and I believe halftime or during the first quarter of the game on Saturday afternoon. Then the following week, they travel up to LSU to take on LSU. That is also going to be a 12 o'clock game, and I'm very surprised that CBS did not pick up on that. Excuse me. I think that when you look at, and I don't know if it's because that the Gator Nation is not. If the media's kind of fallen off the bandwagon of Florida Gators. But I think anytime you have Florida versus LSU play, it's always going to be a big game. And folks, let's be honest with you about something. This Gator team is not out of the SEC. Yes, they are a game behind in the SEC East. Now, some people say 2 games. I really don't understand that concept. Hopefully, somebody can come on and understand that. Help me to understand that. Seattle and the Rams are playing right now. Seattle just now has taken a 6-0 lead off of a Russell Wilson touchdown to Metcalf. Nice catch. So they have a 6-0 lead. Point after is coming on in just a minute. But you tend to wonder, has the spark go out? Has the flame gone out with the Florida Gators now? I mean, anytime you have Florida LSU, that should be a primetime game on the SEC network or even on CBS, but they're not doing that. Why? I have no idea. And we're going to talk about the scheduling of what's going to be happening this weekend in college football. Now, as we get ready for this weekend, I'm going to do some scanning here real quick because my guest kind of bailed out on me a few minutes ago. So let's see here. Just taking a look at some things that are going on. But yeah, and by the way, we have some great games happening with college football this weekend. There's several Thursday and Friday night games, including Stanford taking on at Arizona State. Some very big games on Saturday, including Oklahoma playing in Texas. Let's see here. Arkansas will be at Ole Miss. That's on ESPN. We told you about the Florida game. That's 11 a.m. start. South Carolina will be at Tennessee. This is great, and this is great because Most of most, if not all, the SEC games will be on the ESPN SEC networks, respectfully. Georgia versus Auburn. That's going to be a game that's going to be on CBS. That is a 2:30 kickoff time. Let's see here. Florida State against North Carolina. There's a lot of talk of at Tallahassee. They're not happy with the way Mike Norvell is they're not happy with Mike Norvell and the way he's handling this Florida State team. So I would not be surprised by the end of the season if the Seminoles don't try and make a change. Who they get though, that would be interesting to see. Let's see here. Oh, I didn't want that. Let's see what else we got here. Here we go. Um, let's see. Wisconsin will be Illinois. We know about that. Penn State will be at Iowa. This is the number 4 team in the country in Penn State, taking on Iowa at home at Iowa's Kinnick Stadium, the number 3 team. That it will be a 3 o'clock kickoff time, 2 p.m. Yeah, 3 o'clock Central Time on Fox. That's going to be an outstanding game, and I know the lovely one's going to be watching that game while I put it on the Cyclone stuff. I should do that just to aggravate it, So Michigan will be at Nebraska. Notre Dame will be at Virginia Tech. UCLA will be at Arizona. That's going to be a 9:30 kickoff time. By the way, you got any questions you want to comment to me on? Put them in the chat room. Love to answer any questions that you might have regarding this weekend's action in the National Football League or college football itself. Now, let's also turn our attention and let's talk about what's going on. First of all, let's talk about the game this weekend as the Buccaneers will be taking on the Miami Dolphins in Miami. That will be a 1 o'clock kickoff, 12 o'clock Central Time. Catch the game on CBS. My understanding that Jim Nantz will be calling the game. My understanding Jim Nantz will be calling the game, and so that should be a very interesting contest. And let's go and try here and get some updated information here on the Dolphins versus. Okay, come on now. Trying to find some. Let's see here. Yeah, some injury report as we get ready for the game. Giovanni Bernard, he's limited. Antonio Brown, he practiced. So will be interesting to see what happens. Carlton Davis has a quad injury, got put on IR, as you well know by now. Chris Godwin has a thumb injury. Patrick O'Connor, Rob Gronkowski did not participate. Don't expect them to play. Jason Pierre-Paul, he's on a limited basis, so he might not play in the game. Antoine Winfield is not going to play. Interesting enough that on the Dolphins report, they do not list Tua on the injury report. So that should be interesting to see what happens as we get ready going forward. So that should be so let's see here. All right, so now let's turn back our attention to the Florida Gators as we get ready for the game coming up this Saturday night against Vanderbilt. And while the Gators lost to Kentucky, what is happening behind the scenes is something that's it's going to be things that are very interesting, especially from a recruiting standpoint. Lucas Mann, in all kinds of weather, very active with recruiting, knows a lot about recruiting and what's going on. Joins us on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. You got the same hat as me. No, you don't have the same hat as me, but still, Gators as always. I do have that hat somewhere around. There we go. I gotta be just like you, my friend. How's that, huh?
Okay.
There
How
you go,
doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. And kind of bummed out about the Gators losing the other day. But you know what? Every now and then they're going to have these kind of games. Make no mistake about it.
You know what pisses me off is people want Mullen fired, which is
That is, and that's just something that I cannot really and truthfully understand. Yeah, I know Kentucky. It's not they're not a good team and all, but I mean, look, Dan Mullen's going to have a bad game every now and then. We expect our coaches to have perfect
Would
games every
would
week.
you
It's just
would you
crazy.
want to be the way I look at it? Would you want to be in the hole you were stuck in for the last 10 years before you got here?
Oh no, 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 and I go back to the point. Look, you should be grateful in what you have. Look at what you've had in the past. Jim McElwain. At one point, you only had six healthy offensive linemen. If
Which
you
means
recall, if
which
you
means you only
recall
had
that.
one reserve.
Yeah, and now look at the offensive line. Look how John Hevesy and them all have come and been able to build this team up into a very respected offensive line, and up until last week when they had those eight false starts during the course of the game. And that leads me into things that's happened off the field, because as part of winning, recruiting becomes a big aspect of it. Gators got a commitment today, but they also
No,
lost another commitment.
they got one yesterday. Jimmy Lyons, a 4-star defensive tackle, but they did lose a 2022 3-star defensive end who flipped from UF to Stanford by the name of C.J. Hawkins.
Like,
He he is this um 605th ranked player according to 24/7 Sports.
yeah, and I mean, and someone said, we're pretty stacked at the tight end, but still, anytime you have a guy of that nature that decides not to go, kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah, but we all I'm gonna say is we got some big fish that are supposed to commit in the next couple of weeks. I don't know.
Well, and,
Get
and, let's, and let's talk about that for just a minute. Let's start with Evan Stewart, who's a very highly rated player on
he's a
24/7.
he's the
Um,
number 3 ranked recruit on number 1 wide receiver. I like
right.
I like
Well,
UF. Andrew Spivey, do you know who that is? Andrew Spivey?
yes. And I read Andrew Spivey's column today. He believes that Stewart is going to be a Gator. But Evan, I mean, but Lucas, here's the problem that I have with Evan Stewart. And let me, for the fans that are watching here, let's review what we're talking about. Evan Stewart posted a couple of weeks ago of his decision to forego the rest of his senior season in high school. High school. Okay. Now, his reasoning behind this is because he wants to focus on the next phase of his career. Okay. And you can look at it one of two ways to say, look, the kid doesn't want to get injured. I get all that. But you know what, Lucas? You're talking about high school. Okay, you're talking about playing with your teammates, and now you've decided you don't want to play anymore with your team. I look at that and say to myself, you know, it, to me that's a quitter. Okay, and maybe you have a different take on it, but to
I
me it's
mean, I
like
get it, but I agree with you. I mean, the guy basically quit on his team.
yeah, but basically this is what this guy has done is basically quit on his team. I understand his reasoning for leaving, but you know what? Um, you don't come out and you announce that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this assessment, but you don't just come out and announce to everybody on Twitter that you're quitting your team and not going to play anymore with your teammates to focus on the next phase.
Like, yeah, I agree with you. You don't do that. You don't. I mean, maybe you announce it, but you at least tell the coaches. You don't go to Twitter to.
Well, maybe he did go to coaches. I'm not sure about. I'm not going to say that he didn't. But if you have a guy like Evan Stewart who says, "I'm quitting my team to focus on the next phase," this guy becomes good and plays 2 years, he's going to do the same thing and get on Twitter and say, "I'm leaving my school. I'm gonna enter the NFL draft." And I don't know. I really have a hard problem. I really have a hard time him putting that out there.
I do too. But but we should be getting Jaden Gibson's another one to look out for. He's a 4-star wide receiver.
We
He
got
commit.
him. We got
Well,
him.
we don't. He should be a Gator, but he hasn't committed yet. He commits next week.
He commits next week because I thought I saw something on Twitter and let's see here. Hang on just a
Nope.
minute. Hang on just a minute because I thought I saw something on. Well, go ahead and talk about the other players. What's his name? Jaden Gibson, right?
Jaden Gibson. He commits next week.
Okay. Because I thought West Orange wide receiver. Yeah, it just says here that he's committing soon. So no. So he has not committed yet. So
October,
but
October 13th. I like the Gators. I like where the Gators sit. He has family ties to the program. His dad and uncle both played at UF.
oh really? Oh wow. Well that's gonna help out. That's gonna help them out a lot. What other guys do you see coming as we get closer to signing day in November?
Another one to look out for is Azaria Thomas,
Hmm.
and and I like where the Gators sit there. It's down to it's he in the summer months he named the top three of us, LSU, and Georgia Tech. His brother his brother plays at Georgia Tech, but I his brother plays at Georgia Tech, and I don't think LSU is as much as a factor as they were before. It's us or I think it's us or Georgia Tech.
Interesting.
Um,
That's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out.
I like the
Um,
Gators for him as of right now. We'll see.
does this loss put an urgent? Do you think that this loss puts an urgency on these players to say that if we're going to make something out of this season, we have to play with a sense of urgency? Do you think Dan Mullins is preaching that to them in any way, shape, or form?
I would. I don't. I'm not damn on, but I would. That's what I would be doing.
I mean, you really stop and think about it. I mean, we, we know it's just football, but still, it's time now to see how these players react. It's time to see now how they get ready for that LSU game. So it's going to be
I
interesting to
think
see what
here.
happens.
I think we go 10. I think we go 9-3 this year, and lose to Georgia. As many points.
I'll tell you what. I think we lose one more game, but I don't think it's Georgia. I think that is the one game that we get up for. I think if any game we lose, I think it's going to be. Um,
LSU.
I think it could be very well be LSU because they're traveling on the road again. They're playing in a 12 o'clock game, and LSU's going to be
I'm.
coming and fighting
That's.
mad. But
That, I don't mean to cut you out, buddy, but I'm glad it's a 12 o'clock game instead of a night
I am
game.
too. I am too. I am too because I'm like Dan Mullins. I don't like the night games. Get the morning games, get them done with, enjoy the rest of the football, and have a good time. Hey, listen, I got to run. Thank you so much for giving us updates. You get anything else, be sure you let me know. Okay.
You, you know, I'm always down.
There you go. Have a good one. Thanks for joining me, Lucas. All right, Lucas Mann, the dean of recruiting for Florida Gator football. Thank you, my friend. So Lucas Mann joining me on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. Okay, now let's set the stage for what's going on. Um, Next week there is not going to be an insider, as I'm going to be taking the week off. The lovely one and I are going to be on vacation. The following week, the Buccaneers play on a Thursday night. Insider is going to do a very special Tuesday night edition of Insider, which I believe is going to be on the 18th. You want to be sure to join me for that broadcast. Hopefully, we can have Shane Matthews that night, and maybe a couple other people can join me as well, and we will have ourselves a good time. I want to thank Brit Buc Wilson for joining me. I want to thank Lucas Mann for joining me as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the show as well. Have a great night. And as I always like to say, go Gators. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for watching Animal Football Insider. Be sure to join us every Thursday night here on Facebook Live.